social media is a relatively new platform that people are still trying to better integrate with. For example, when you have events like birthdays, a wedding, an anniversary, the birth of a child, you take photos of these events to capture those moments to remember them later, and then you share them on your platforms like Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Well, this is a story about one lady who actually takes to stalking via social media. So does Ingrid Goes West actually capture the essence of crazy, or is it a bit too logical? Let's dive in and take a look in this review. So if you're like me, when you saw the trailer for this, you thought, wow, this could be something really cool, like a Coen Brothers film, where it's well written, comedic, but still dark and troubled in tone. And you get a lot of that, because when we meet the main character, Ingrid, who's played by Aubrey Plaza, you actually find out that she's a very on-edge, mentally disturbed individual because her mother has recently passed, and then she also found out that she's not as good of friends with someone as she thought she was in her mind. Now, she goes so far as to actually stalk this person at her wedding via Instagram by liking all the photos, and then when she realizes that she's not quite the friend she thought she was, she has a mental breakdown, attacks the bride at her wedding, and sprays her in the face with mace. This is all pretty serious stuff. So she's committed to a mental hospital. Over a period of time, she gets treatment there and is then released. When she gets home, she sees that her mother's hospital bed is still in the home from some type of hospice care, I'm assuming. She also finds that she has a check for an inheritance from her mother's passing, and she finds somebody new on social media to stalk. She then moves to California to stalk this new individual, and the story is off and running. Hence the title, Ingrid Goes West. In so much as she also creates a brand new Instagram page called Ingrid Goes West. So they're really driving that plot home. Now, she finds this internet celebrity, this Instagram celebrity, if you will, played by Elizabeth Olsen, and she starts to model her life after her Instagram posts, where she'll go to the restaurants that she posts about, she'll shop in the same areas. She kind of learns where Elizabeth is actually taking place in this story to try and mold herself after her. Halfway into the movie, I was wondering if this film was going to be something like the old movie All About Eve, which is a record holder for how many Oscars it's won. So if you haven't seen that, definitely check it out. I know Fathom Events does like showings of it. That's when I saw it. I got to see it on the big screen a couple of months ago. Super fun time revisiting those classics. But I thought it was going to be something like All About Eve, to where she kind of takes on the persona of the celebrity and then becomes the celebrity, and then the cycle repeats itself as we have a new person enter. And that's not what happens. She does take on the persona, but eventually she's discovered to be a fraud, and things go south very quick for her because she's still very unstable mentally. She's still on the edge, very much on the edge. She does happen to stumble upon someone who sees the trouble that she's in and sees the heartache that she's going through and the pain that she suffers every day as an individual, and that's her landlord, played by O'Shea Jackson Jr. And he does a phenomenal job in this role. It's just a laid-back guy who sees life for what it is and is willing to be a helpful person in a time of need for someone like Ingrid. Now, despite her best efforts and trying to win over everything, the character played by O'Shea Jackson Jr. still remains very patient and understanding with her. She ruins his truck, he breezes it off. She lies to him about having a dog, he's still okay with it, because he can see there's something with her, and it's actually a point that he makes later on in the film, is what he sees in her as a person. And he actually becomes somewhat of a hero at the end of the film. We'll get to that in a minute. Now, once Ingrid is discovered to be a fraud, she has a nervous breakdown, and she can't take it anymore, so she actually ends up recording a video of herself popping pills and drinking booze as like a suicide note to the internet world, saying, okay, it's over, goodbye. Now, spoiler alert, it's up. You ready? She does not die. In fact, once the video posts, it goes viral, and she becomes the internet sensation that she's always wanted to be because of that honesty that she brought out of herself in her moment of weakness. Very, very dark stuff in this movie. But fortunately, the character played by O'Shea Jackson sees the video, calls 911, they get her to the hospital, and they revive her. Now, throughout the film, his character is obsessed with Batman because of the heroistic type of character that Batman is, and how he's just a street-level human who does good things despite what happened to him as a child. And he really tries to personify that in his character in this movie, and even at the end, once he saves her, he replies back that that's something that Batman would do. So overall, this movie is very dark. It is very entrenched in some very terrible moments for this individual Ingrid because of how disturbed mentally she is. So if you're going to see this, I recommend that you see it earlier in the day. That way you have time to process it. I was able to catch it at a matinee, which was great because then I had all day. I could sit over lunch and dinner and just kind of mull through all of the emotional impact that this movie was able to create, because it is a very powerful film, and because it deals with social media, you can actually see how somebody in today's world who is unstable might take to that kind of attitude and viewpoint on life. And it's troubling. This is a very troubling movie, but it does speak well about what humans can do when they care about somebody and how they can come to their rescue and come to their aid by just being a friend. So at the end of the film, really nice high points. Aubrey Plaza does a great job. O'Shea Jackson does a great job, and even Elizabeth Olsen is really good in this film. I definitely recommend you check out Ingrid Goes West if you like human pieces. Now you gotta like movies about people, because that's all this is. There's no action or anything crazy like that. It's just an examination of people, specifically a very mentally troubled and disturbed individual who's just trying to find something to cling to. I really enjoyed Ingrid Goes West. I recommend you check it out, but you have to be ready for an emotionally taxing movie. Still worth it, and it's getting at least one high five from this guy. So for those of us who are fans of Bruce Lee and his movies, there is this old story, or myth if you will, about how he fought a Shaolin monk. Now this is all before the success that we know him for today. This is that story. So, does Birth of the Dragon live up to the myth and the mystery, or does it get knocked out of the ring? Let's find out in this review. So the film takes place in the 1960s in Chinatown in San Francisco, and it explores kind of what Bruce Lee was like before he became the super mega star that we know him for today. So we see him, he's running his own dojo, he's training Americans to fight using Kung Fu, and he kind of is like this own separate entity in Chinatown, because Chinatown at this point in the movie is run by a Chinese triad gang, but they seem to leave him alone, and they explain why later in the film. Now, in walks a Shaolin monk who, during a fight in China, actually used a lethal kick and almost killed somebody during an exhibition match, which is all about show, not physical contact. So there is contact because it's martial arts, but not the kind that would kill somebody. So he shows up to America, and Bruce Lee finds out, but Bruce Lee thinks he's there because of him. Little does he know that this guy was actually did something he shouldn't have done, and now he's here as like penance, if you will, to actually try and humble himself to recenter his chi and get back on the right path as a Shaolin monk. So overall, the story I thought was really well done. There's no bad language, there's no graphic violence, there's no nudity, there's no sex. Like, this is just a movie that you can actually enjoy as a family if your family likes martial arts films, which I thought was pretty cool. Now, there is one scene with regards to the triads where you actually find out that one of the characters in it is a slave, like a human trafficking slave, and that she works at a restaurant, but she's super pretty, so if she doesn't like toe the line, they'll send her to a house and she'll be a sex slave there. So that's the only real, and it's just like one or two quick scenes where they're talking about it. They don't show anything, they don't like, there's no graphic anything. They just say like, hey, toe the line or else. It was a really good film overall. Now, my favorite aspect of this film wasn't so much the acting or anything like that, or even the story, but was actually the camera angles and the way the director shot the film. Because in most action movies, what you'll get like really close, uptight shots of action. And you're kind of led to believe that action is happening, even though you can't quite see it, because it's like fist up close, face up close, elbow up close. So that's the action scene, but not in this movie. In this movie, we are panned back, like we are right now. So you can actually see both people and what's going on. They show the full room, too, during some of the fights. So you actually get a sense that you're in the room watching the fights as it's happening. Even when they are in the karate tournament and Bruce Lee is showing off his infamous 1-inch punch, that's all wide angle shots. So you really get to see the karate tournament match. You get to see the fights that take place. So you get a sense that the characters playing Bruce Lee and Wong Jackman, the Shaolin monk, they actually know what they're doing because they do. These are Kung Fu artists giving us the treat of visual Kung Fu. And I thought that was great. So if you watch it, pay attention to those wide shots, because we're not getting these up close, super tight, are they fighting, aren't they fighting? It's wide back. It's the full room. You feel like you're in the room watching them fight each other. It was fantastic. There's a brief gambling story, but there's also a love story that runs the gambit of the film. And both of these are kind of subplots to highlight the character of Bruce Lee and the Shaolin monk, Wong Jackman. because they show at the core, even though yes, Bruce Lee is very arrogant in this film, and the monk is very prideful and he's trying to humble himself and find his center to rebalance his chi, they still have care for people in the neighborhood, and they set themselves up to try and help these individuals throughout the film. And I thought that was a pretty touching moment overall. For a kung fu movie, it still had a lot of heart, and I really enjoyed it. So Birth of the Dragon is in theaters right now. I definitely recommend that you guys check this out. Like I said, it's a family-friendly film as far as I'm concerned, because there's no bad language, there's no graphic violence, it's just kung fu. There's no nudity, there's no sex, it's just a good story about two guys going into this one epic fight, and it's a lot of fun. Now, once the fight ends, there is another fight that happens afterwards too, which you'll get to enjoy. And that was, I mean, that's super great. We're talking people falling downstairs, breaking tables, super good stuff. Definitely check out Birth of the Dragon if you like kung fu movies, or if you just like a good action movie that you can watch with the whole family. Are your kids in karate? Do they take kung fu? Sit down with them and watch this movie and have a family moment, share that experience with them. I think you guys will really enjoy it. Birth of the Dragon, while it's not an incredibly well-written, like, dramatic Oscar-winning piece, it's still a very good story. I had a lot of fun, and because of the fact that you can watch it with everybody, I'm giving it both high fives. So Birth of the Dragon in theaters now. Check it out.